I found myself staring at the ticket confirmation on my phone, but the thrill that should have accompanied it was completely absent. This trip, which I had painstakingly organized, felt like it would be anything but enjoyable. Are you really saying you can't come on the trip I arranged? If you don't join us, then you're not family. It's just common sense, considering you married my son. That was Effie, my mother-in-law, delivering her ultimatum just a week ago. Her tone dripped with the same entitlement that always accompanied our conversations. It wasn't a request, it was a command, laced with guilt and meant to remind me of my place in her family hierarchy. Cody, my husband, had opened his mouth, likely ready to defend me, but I had silenced him with a look. What would be the point? Engaging with her was like trying to escape quicksand. The harder I fought, the more entrenched I became, so I plastered on a tight smile and conceded to her demands, unaware that this would be my last family trip with them, a journey that would finally dismantle the fragile facade I had been maintaining. I'm Liliana, 32 years old, and I own a small app development company. I adore my work, even if Effie dismisses it as a mere hobby. Cody, at 37, is a dedicated bank employee. We've been married for 4 years, and while our careers flourish, our personal life is anything but smooth. We don't have children yet, but we hope to someday when the moment is right. For now, my focus is on my work. My company is small but expanding. I invest my heart and soul into it because it's my passion and my dream. Cody has always supported me. We share household duties and respect each other's independence. But Effie sees none of that. In her eyes, I exist solely as Cody's wife, and in her version of that role, I should cater to her every whim. The issue is that Cody's family lacks a sense of boundaries, especially Effie. She disapproves of our approach to life. We built a home strategically placed between both our families, yet instead of valuing the balance, Effie finds fault. She hates that we manage our finances separately, even though it suits us perfectly. In her mind, marriage equates to no secrets, no privacy, and certainly no independence. I've tried to brush off her endless critiques, but it's a struggle. Effie doesn't merely dislike me, she actively resents my existence. Every family gathering is a reminder, filled with veiled insults about our childless status and barbs about my career. The moment that truly hurt, though, was when she forced me to miss my best friend's wedding. About a year ago, my best friend, Amanda, was moving abroad after her wedding, and I had eagerly anticipated celebrating that special day. But a week before the wedding, my father-in-law, Andy, summoned me to attend an important business reception on behalf of the family. He framed it as an obligation, one I couldn't refuse without causing offense. I tried to explain that missing Amanda's wedding was not an option, that it was a once-in-a-lifetime occasion, but Effie wouldn't entertain my reasoning. She labeled me selfish, insisting that family should always come first. To my dismay, Cody, fully aware of how much this wedding meant to me, sided with them. It's just this one time, he reassured me, we can make it up to you later. I felt stunned and heartbroken, but trapped in a web of obligation. I reluctantly agreed to forego the wedding. I apologized to Amanda, who understood but was visibly disappointed. The business reception ended up being a catastrophe. Effie, ever convinced of her superiority, made tactless comments to important clients, cracked jokes that fell flat, and the entire event unraveled. We didn't secure the contract we needed, and I was left questioning why I had sacrificed something so significant for a family that seemed to care only about themselves. After that, I began to withdraw. I steered clear of family gatherings, crafting excuses to work late or scheduling client meetings whenever Effie planned visits. Cody noticed my evasiveness, of course, but he never pressed me for an explanation. I think, deep down, he understood my reasons. But the family trip? That was a tradition I couldn't escape. Every year since Cody was a child, his family had embarked on a vacation together, and after we got married, it was expected that I would join. I despised it. I loathed being responsible for all the planning, the hotels, the meals, the itinerary of tourist spots, and once we were on the trip, I felt more like their personal assistant than a family member. I drove them around, ensured everything ran smoothly, and was often reminded to stay in my lane if I dared to voice an opinion. This year, however, things were about to take a turn for the worse. Just days before the trip, I received the devastating news that my mom had collapsed. She was in critical condition, and I needed to rush to the hospital. I dropped everything, ready to be by her side. Cody offered to come with me, but something in his tone felt too final, as if he was bracing himself for the worst. I urged him to stay behind and assured him I could manage alone. When we broke the news to Effie that we couldn't go on the trip, she erupted, her face flushed with anger, and her words dripped with venom. You're really saying you can't come? If you don't attend, then you're no longer part of this family. I was at a loss for words. Cody began to speak, but Effie cut him off, as she always did. As my son's wife, your duty is to be here, not running off at the first sign of trouble. I felt the urge to snap back when my phone rang. It was my brother calling from the hospital. He informed me that while my mom's condition was serious, she had stabilized. The doctor assured him there was no immediate danger, but they were still monitoring her closely, due to a recent outbreak of a contagious illness in the area. Visitors were not allowed, at least not for the time being. Don't rush over just yet, my brother advised. If anything changes, I'll let you know. You can visit when things settle down. I hesitated, caught between the urgency of going to the hospital and the weight of this ridiculous family obligation. Sensing my uncertainty, my brother asked what was going on. After I explained, he calmly suggested that since the trip destination wasn't far from home, I could still go and be close enough to the hospital if needed. It made sense, but the thought of spending time with Effie and Andy while my mom lay in a hospital bed filled me with dread. Nevertheless, to avoid further drama, I reluctantly agreed. Fine, I'll go on the trip, I told Effie. Her triumphant grin made my stomach turn. If you'd said that from the start, we wouldn't have had to deal with all this nonsense. Just remember, if you don't come, it's divorce. Her casual mention of divorce hit me like a punch to the gut. It was always her threat whenever things didn't go her way, but this time it felt more ominous, more final. We agreed to go on the trip, but I made it clear that if anything changed with my mom, I would leave immediately. Effie didn't seem to care. Her only concern was ensuring I was there to fulfill my role as the family's driver and planner. The morning of the trip, I was a wreck. My mind raced with thoughts of my mom, and I checked my phone every few minutes for updates. Meanwhile, Effie was already drinking, turning the back seat of our car into her personal party zone. To my dismay, Cody joined in, sipping along with her. As I drove, I felt trapped in a marriage where my in-laws wielded more control over my life than I did. Yet I was too worn out to fight back. All I could do was endure. Effie's demands didn't let up during the trip. Stop here, she would command. We need more beer, and make it quick. I gritted my teeth and complied, all the while waiting anxiously for my phone to ring with news about my mom. I couldn't focus on anything else. Then finally, the call came. It was my brother, and his voice was calm. Mom's doing better, he said. She's conscious now, and the doctors are hopeful, but she's still weak, and there's a long recovery ahead. Relief washed over me, but it was fleeting. When I shared the news with Effie and Andy, they barely reacted. If she's better, why are you bothering us with this? Effie scoffed, rolling her eyes. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Andy nodded in agreement. Exactly. No need to spoil the trip with bad news. We're supposed to be enjoying ourselves. I was stunned. How could they be so callous? This was my mother we were talking about, and they couldn't even pretend to care. The rest of the trip blurred together. Effie and Andy partied at the hotel, drinking and making a scene while I remained in our room, silently seething. I couldn't wait for it all to be over. When we finally returned home, I hoped to put the entire experience behind me, but Effie had other plans. She showed up at our house the next day with bags of laundry in tow. You have a dryer, right? We don't, so I'll just use yours, she said, pushing past me without waiting for a response. I was too exhausted to argue. There's a laundromat with dryers just down the street, I told her. I'm busy with my own laundry and need the machine. Effie glared at me, calling me stingy. Fine, she snapped, but once you're done, I'll come pick it up tomorrow. Make sure it's finished. I couldn't believe her audacity, but before I could retort, Cody intervened. Go to a laundromat, he said firmly. Liliana is tired, and she has work tomorrow. It's not happening. Effie looked as if she had been slapped. She stormed out, fuming. For the first time, Cody had stood up to her, and I could see the surprise in her eyes. But the final blow came just days later when Effie returned, divorce papers in hand. She slammed them down on the table along with an absurd family contract. You don't act like part of this family, she said coldly. It's time to make a decision. I was speechless. What even was a family contract? The very idea was preposterous. I barely had time to process the situation before Cody spoke up. I have something to say, he began, his voice steady and resolute. If you keep imposing your views on us, we'll cut ties. Liliana isn't your servant, and I won't let you treat her that way anymore. Effie looked stunned, but she quickly recovered, redirecting her anger toward me. You've changed him, she shouted. He used to be so sweet, and now you've brainwashed him. But Cody wasn't finished. You're the one who's been controlling me for years, he shot back. I've had enough. If you can't respect our marriage, then you need to stay out of our lives. Realizing she had lost the battle, Effie turned to Andy for support, but to my surprise, he said nothing. He just stood there, looking defeated. With that, they left, and for the first time in years, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Cody had finally chosen me, and Effie's grip on our lives had been broken. In the days that followed, Cody severed financial ties with his family. I learned that he had been supporting them for years, paying for their trips and bailing out their struggling factory. But that was over now. Without his support, the factory eventually went under, forcing Effie to find work. I saw her once, scrubbing floors as a cleaner, though I felt a twinge of sympathy. I knew this was the consequence of her actions. As for Cody and me, we're stronger than ever, we're focused on our careers, and for now, we're enjoying life without the constant interference of his family. We've even started planning our next vacation, just the two of us. For the first time in a long time, I finally feel free.